Hi, I'm John Rinker. I'm here to show you the Roadster amplifier from Mesa Boogie's rectifier series. The Roadster, available as a head, 112 or 212 closeback combo, is a 100-watt amplifier that has 4 independent channels which are grouped as 2 lower gain rhythm channels, channels 1 and 2, for more clean and medium gain applications, and channels 3 and 4 grouped as 2 high gain lead channels. Each of these channels house 3 different modes, which are voiced differently and in certain cases have different gain structures. There are also some modes that are duplicated, which makes it possible to use them for different settings of the same sound. We'll get further into each of these modes shortly. Once you have chosen a channel and mode combination for a sound, you can simply go to the rear panel channel strip and select that channel's reverb setting, power amp choice, either 50 or 100 watts using the multi-watt feature, choose your rectifier style, and effects loop status. One of the most exciting features you will find in the Roadster is the multi-watt feature. This feature allows you to assign any of the 4 channels to either 50 watts using only 2 6L6s or 100 watts using 4 6L6s. The benefit here is that you can either maximize headroom and output when setting a channel to 100 watts or enjoy the earlier clip onset and breakup characteristics a lower 50 watt setting can give you. Normally you would have to own 2 separate amps and an amp switcher to achieve this in a foot switchable application. Another cool feature you will find on the Roadster is rectifier tracking. This feature allows you to assign the type of rectification to be used on each individual channel. For example, you might want to use tube rectification for clean and medium gain sounds for a more vintage feel, and assign diode rectification to higher gain modes for a tighter fast tracking response. The Roadster also has a rich all-tube analog reverb on board. The reverb level is adjustable and can be switched in and out using the foot controller. And the last channel assignable feature is the series effects loop for interfacing effects processing. Selecting effects on in a given channel will engage the loop automatically when a channel is selected with the foot controller. Now let's get back into the versatility of the individual modes and channels. So here's a quick example of the clean mode in channel 1 set to 100 watts. Now, because the clean mode is duplicated in channel 2, I want to show you an alternate setting using more gain set to 50 watts using a tube rectifier. So let's go back to channel 1 so I can give you an example of the fat mode. This mode comes from our original Mark I Boogie and puts emphasis on the low, mid, and bottom end, and as a result the top strings of the instrument have more girth and width. This mode is duplicated in channel 2 and is wonderful for clean single note soloing. So here's a quick example of the fat mode in channel 1 set to 100 watts using the diode rectifier. Because the fat mode is also duplicated in channel 2, here's a quick alternate setting of the fat mode in channel 2 set to 50 watts using a tube rectifier. One of the key features I want to come back to is the tube-driven reverb in this amplifier. There's an immense amount of reverb available, and I just want to show you how much. Here's an example. Now let's go back to channel 1 so I can give you an example of the tweed mode. This mode appears in channel 1 only and is a gainier variation on the clean that appears in both channels. Here we have emphasized the gain in the mid-range to achieve a more vintage feel that has the element of sag already built in. And here's a quick example of the tweed mode. You've just heard an example of the tweed mode in channel 1. Now let's move back to channel 2 where I can give you an example of the Brit mode. This mode appears in channel 2 only, and as the name applies, was inspired by the great sounding amps of the 50s and 60s that were built in Great Britain. So here's an example of the Brit mode in channel 2 set to 50 watts, this time using a diode rectifier. Now moving on to channels 3 and 4 of the Roadster. The first mode you'll find in these channels is the raw mode. This new Roadster mode is the lowest gain of the 3 in the 2 high gain lead channels. The raw mode, even though it is a gainier mode, it can also be set up as an alternate clean. I'm going to give you a quick example of that. You've just heard the raw mode in channel 3 set as an alternate clean sound. Now here's an example of the same mode in channel 4, but this time using more gain and set to tube rectifier. The next mode that can be found in channels 3 and 4 is the vintage mode. This high gain mode is the famous liquid recto voice, and it can be found in its original state in both channels. Okay, here's what the vintage mode sounds like in channel 3. Because the vintage mode can also be found in channel 4, I want to show you an alternate setting of this mode, this time in channel 4, using more gain and more setup for a liquidy soloing application. Now moving on to the most aggressive of the high gain modes found in channels 3 and 4, the modern mode. This mode opens up the top end and provides a very focused low end response even in extreme high gain settings. So here's what the modern mode sounds like. Well, I hope you enjoyed this quick demo of the Roadster. As you can see through these handful of examples, the Roadster is extremely versatile, allowing it to roam confidently between extremely different musical styles while retaining the ability to focus in on any one. I'm John Rinker. We'll catch you next time.